The doom of Morgoth approaches, son of Hurin. Cries of anguish echo upon the winds. The cold breath of darkness consumes the land. Which is now enveloped by conflict.
Where am I?
Hello, Hurin, son of Huor.
Morgoth. What do you want from me?
It is not what, but where. Gondolin, the free city. Where is it?
I don't know.
Don't lie to me. I have proof. Do you see this photo?
Mm-hmm.
This is you.
Yes.
On an eagle.
Correct.
Headed to the free city of Gondolin.
That's right.
Aha! So you have been there. Now tell me where it is.
I can't.
Why not?
Because I swore an oath.
Then break it.
I can't.
Why not?
Because it's an oath.
Fine. Then you leave me no choice. Hurin, father of Turin, from this day forward, I, Morgoth, shall turn all my malice towards thee. I shall curse you and all your kin. And from my intention a cloud of doom shall follow your children, and wherever they go, tragedy will follow.
Oh, jeez.
Yes, but it gets much worse.
Worse?
Your children will suffer, and you will get to watch the whole thing.
That doesn't sound too bad.
From this Meta VR headset.
No!
In the aftermath of the Battle of Unnumbered Tears, Hurin, son of Huor, was taken by Morgoth, the Lord of Darkness, as a prisoner. Morgoth wanted to know the location of the hidden city of Gondolin, a place untouched by his corruption. And Hurin had just been there. So Morgoth captured him, tied him up, and requested the answer.
No.
But Hurin refused, and so Morgoth placed a curse upon his family. Tragedy would follow them wherever they went, and currently they are located here, Dorlomin, where Hurin's wife Morwen, his son Turin, and his daughter Nienor live a peaceful life. But there's a problem. Without Hurin here to protect them, Dorlomin is exposed. And as a result, evil men began to invade.
Mommy, look! A beautiful butter...
Great shot!
A group of men called Easterlings conquer Dorlomin. They kill the old, enslave the young, and do all sorts of evil. So Turin, the only son of Hurin, is sent away to live with the elves. More specifically, the elves of Doriath. Their dense forests could protect Turin and allow him to grow strong. But elves seldom parley with their human counterparts, and so Thingol, king of the elves of Doriath, would decide whether or not they accepted Turin. As he said,
Height, 5'8", sir. Weight, 102 pounds. Ears,
round, sire.
Disgusting. But your mother did put in a good word for you, so I'll allow it.
And so despite his round ears, Turin would be accepted into their kingdom and be given a rare chance to learn in the ways of the elves, their language, their culture, their warcraft. And in the blink of a single elven life, Turin became a man of great stature. Tall and proud he was, well liked by all the elves, save one, Saeros, one of the king's top advisors. Saeros held nothing but contempt for Turin, this round-eared abomination. He couldn't understand why such a creature would be taken in by the king, and so Saeros would often provoke Turin with a condescending comment or a subtle verbal jab. And one day, this contentious relationship would boil over when Turin entered the keep, seeking audience with the king.
Hello? Hello?
But Thingol wasn't on his throne.
Thingol? My king?
Nor in the kitchen.
Anybody home?
Not even the bathroom. When suddenly, a faint murmur pricked the round ears of Turin. The clanking of cups and the hushed conversations of important people. So Turin walked into the dining hall and found the source of the commotion.
Oh, Turin, come and join us.
Some elves having dinner. Not the king, but his most valuable, important advisors. So Turin took the only remaining seat and began to make merriment.
All right, I got one. Let's say you're 9 beers deep and on the best pipe weed in Doriath. You'd bang an orc lady, right? You're sick, Turin. Oh, gross, dude. Ah, come on, guys. You'd do it. Especially you, Findolfin. Findolfin? You look as though you've seen a Balrog. Oh, it's you, Saeros. I would have preferred a Balrog. Come, join us.
I can't.
Why not? Is that stick so far up your ass that you can't sit? My seat. You're in it. Your seat. I see no nameplate, nor a jacket, not even a cup of wine. So pray tell me, how is this your seat? I was sitting there before I had to poop. Ah. Well, there you have it. It was your seat, but now it's mine. You son of a...
Turin and Saeros get into an argument over a seat. Things get heated, combs are thrown, and the two are forced to be separated. No big deal. This was but a minor altercation, a small misunderstanding. Surely, with time, level heads would prevail, and everything would be fine. Thought everyone but Saeros, for this elf, proud and noble, could not forget such a slight. He would not, nay, could not forget this crime, especially from some human. And so Saeros began to plot and plot, creating his perfect plan for revenge. He knew Turin took a daily walk through the forest, a solo walk through the forest. It was perfect, a place sheltered from the other elven eyes, and with only the trees to hear. And so on the morrow, while Turin took his daily stroll through the forest, Saeros got his revenge.
Yeah!
Saeros, what the f*** are you doing? Killing you, little human.
Saeros ambushed Turin, and the two began to fight. Sword met shield, fist met face, but when the dust settled, Saeros had been conquered. But instead of killing his assailant, Turin did something far worse. He stripped Saeros and shamed him in front of all the forest, saying,
Is it really that cold out here, Saeros? Or are all elves so cursed between their legs? Please, Turin, just give me my clothes back. The trees are laughing. I think not. For such cowardly behavior, there can only be one punishment. Some clothes? I'll give you a 5-second head start before I carve that little knob into a stub. Oh, come on, man. Be reasonable. 5. What? You can't do this. 4. Stop that! 2. You skipped 3. 1. Ah!
Saeros leapt away from Turin, naked as his name day. He slipped by root and sped by tree. He was fast, but Turin was faster, as he nipped at Saeros' heels like a hound hunting a hare. Saeros ran and continued running until he couldn't run anymore.
Oh, f***.
For he came to a chasm, a big chasm. He was trapped. On one side, Turin, and on the other, the depths. But Saeros was desperate, and so he did the unthinkable. He leapt across the chasm. Or at least tried to leap across the chasm, as a dismayed Turin remarked,
Oh my God. I think he's dead.
For Saeros was indeed dead, and the other elves had arrived just in time to see Turin chasing Saeros. Not a good look. The elves blamed Turin, not knowing of Saeros' ambush, and thus demand he return for the king's judgment. But Turin, ever proud, refused, leaving the kingdom of Doriath and forsaking his second home. No elf dared stop him, for Turin's strength was greater than any in the land. Now from here he traveled to the woods of Brethil, where he wandered far and wide. Yet he could not shake an uneasy feeling.
There are fell eyes upon me.
It felt as if the trees watched him, hated him, whispering some unknown jest. Turin unsheathed his sword and readied himself. But it was too late. The Watchers revealed themselves. Men. Outlaws. The Glaurung wraith. Their eyes were filled with malice, and their hearts bursting with envy, as they surrounded Turin and attempted to rob him, saying,
Give us that sword, boy, and that helm, and those pants. You don't need those.
But Turin, tall and proud, could not be bullied, and so he replied,
Silence, cravens. You know not what you do.
But this only angered the outlaws, who in their shame felt secondary. And so one of their men made a most fretful decision, saying,
Oh, f*** off. We're gonna murder you. That's what we're gonna do. Carl? I think he's dead. There's plenty more where that came from. There's no need. We've just had a job opening.
Impressed by Turin's fighting prowess, the band of outlaws allowed him to join, and for many months they would proceed to do outlaw stuff. Rob the weak, murder the strong, whistle in the woods. Truly terrible deeds. Yet deep within Turin's heart, he had misgivings. He disliked these outlaws' ways and longed to change these men, lead these men to better places. And after accidentally slaying the outlaw leader, Turin was promoted, for outlaws value strength above all else, and strength they would need. For orcs of Morgoth had begun to descend into the forests of Brethil. Their numbers were vast and their steel was strong. Too strong for these simple outlaws, and Turin knew this. So he looked for safe haven, a permanent lodging for his men that the orcs could never find. And lo, as if sent by Eru himself, Turin stumbled upon a most unexpected creature. The outlaws ran into 3 dwarves, and naturally, being outlaws, they shoot arrows at them to run away while one is captured. His name was Mim, and he was old, very old. Now dwarves are known for 2 things, their love of wealth and their well-hidden mountain homes. So Turin knew Mim's home must be close. So he leveraged the situation and began negotiations.
All right, little dwarf. Take a good look around you. Do you see these men? They're murderers, thieves, outlaws. Oh, jeez. I know. See him? He hasn't bathed in 6 months. Oh, disgusting. And Thobias there? He goes number 2 and doesn't wash his hands. My God. Exactly. So if you don't want any trouble, you'll give us the location of your mountain home. I know it must be around here somewhere. My lord, just turn around. Oh, so you can just run away? What? Do you take me for a fool, dwarf? No, it's literally right behind you.
And so Mim, the petty dwarf, agreed to take Turin and his outlaws into his hidden mountain home. He showed them the secret doorways, and he guided them through booby traps. And after many hours, they climbed the steep foothills of Amon Ruth. Mim led them through the ancient gateway and inside the mountain. They were home, yet they did not receive the welcome they expected. For someone, or something, was dying, and at that moment Mim sped away as if ignited by some sudden passion. He weaved through caverns and flew through the stone labyrinth, leaving only the cries of anguish to guide the outlaws. And guide them it would, for eventually Turin and his men came to the source of the cries. One of the dwarves, one of Mim's children, was dying, skewered by an arrow from one of Turin's men, to which Mim said,
My son. My beautiful baby son. These bastards will pay. What was that? Oh, nothing.
Mim was wroth. These vile humans had killed his son, and he would have his revenge. But for now, he must play it cool. He was outnumbered, outgunned, and had Pinky promised to give them safe harbor. So he begrudgingly allowed these men to stay in his home. Yet with each day that passed, each month that faded, his hatred grew and grew, for these brutes were disgusting. They ate his food, they drank his wine, and they made merriment right on his son's corpse. Yet these were but minor annoyances, and the final straw would come from abroad. I hear a dwarf's been murdered. Let's party. For it was Beleg Strongbow, an elf sent by King Thingol to bring Turin back to the elven kingdom of Doriath. Turin had been deemed innocent for any crime against Saeros, and thus was redeemed. But Turin, ever proud, refused. His duty was now with his men, his outlaws, and although he loved Beleg dearly, he would not go. And if Turin would not go, Beleg would stay, for the two were great friends, and so now an elf had joined the party. But this was more than Mim could bear. Humans in his house were one thing, outlaws another, but elves, that was a sin Mim could never forgive. And so on a dark autumn day, Mim slipped away from the men and sought out the most vile creatures of them all.
You've called my name, little dwarf, and I've come.
For it was the orcs. Mim would strike up a deal with the orcs, who said,
Tell me, what is it you offer?
Flesh. 10,221 pounds of man flesh.
I'm listening.
I bring them to you, you kill them, and we both live happily ever after.
It's a deal.
Oh, and one more thing. This man must not be harmed. And the elf, you will leave the elf to me.
Mim strikes up a deal with the orcs. He'd give up the outlaws, but with two caveats. 1, the orcs will not harm Turin, and 2, they will leave the elf Beleg for him. The orcs agree, and so on a seemingly normal day, while the outlaws prepared for second breakfast.
Everybody, I have an announcement.
Mim led the orcs on the attack.
After many years of doing outlaw stuff,
During the dawn, with total secrecy,
robbing, murdering, stealing babies,
Mim guided the orcs past all of Turin's sentries,
I've decided to give it up. Let go of that nonsense.
and right up to Turin and his men.
And so I swear to you that I shall be an honorable man.
The orcs attack, surrounding and ambushing the outlaws. It was a massacre, each and every man slain, and when the smoke finally subsided, only Turin and Beleg remained. But this dynamic duo had seen far worse. They'd fought the armies of Morgoth, and they'd trained in the trees of Doriath, and no foe would stop them. And so they pulled out their swords and they're captured. Turin is borne away by the orcs, while Beleg was tied up and left for Mim. But just as Mim went in for the killing blow, a dying outlaw saved Beleg's life, who narrowly escaped. Now from here, Beleg had but one choice. He must track the orcs down and save Turin. So he ran and ran across the countryside. He went over hills and through valleys, and after many days without rest, Beleg almost despaired. But just as he began to give up, he came across a most unexpected ally. A sleeping elf named Gwyndor. So Beleg awakes him and explains the situation, that his friend Turin has been captured by the orcs and must be saved. Gwyndor understands and agrees to help, and so the two set out, searching high and low for the orc stronghold, until finally they find it, and prepare to execute the plan. But there's a problem. They're severely outnumbered, and the orc fortifications are fast. Yet Beleg, ever crafty, had a plan.
All right, Gwyndor. It looks like we've got about a baker's dozen worth of orcs and a pack of giant wolves.
Oh, jeez.
Yes, and I need to get by them.
But how? The lidless eye of Morgoth never sleeps.
True, but you know what else never sleeps?
My anxiety?
The nose of beasts.
What do you have in mind?
Do you trust me, Gwyndor?
With my life.
Good. Good. Then put these on.
Beleg would use elf tactics to sneak by the orc sentries. He tiptoed past wolves and snuck by campfires, and eventually he found it. Turin's tent. Beleg entered, found the battered human, and bore him away, taking Turin as far as his nimble elf strength would allow. And once outside the orc encampment, Beleg pulled out his knife and cut Turin's bonds. But alas, the curse of Morgoth loomed large, a shadow obscuring the vision of all. For Beleg, under the haze of twilight, accidentally cut Turin, who awoke with a start.
Who goes there?
Turin was confused. It was dark, he was tired, and his last memory was that of being captured by orcs. And so when he saw a dark object holding a knife above him, he assumed a most reasonable assumption.
Orcs! I'll kill you all! Ah!
Turin leapt into an unconscious attack, savagely assaulting Beleg. He took his sword, raised it high, and...
Orc bastard! What? Beleg.
Turin killed Beleg, his best friend. But there was no time for tears, because the restless orcs had noticed their escaped prisoner. They rang the bells and scoured the land. It was no longer safe for elf or human, so Gwyndor and Turin fled, and fled, over the mountains, through the hills, and beyond Morgoth's vision. For they came to Gwyndor's home, one of the last great elf kingdoms, Nargothrond, a citadel of light. Turin asked for safe haven, and the elves obliged. And like with the outlaws, Turin rapidly rose the ranks of society, becoming one of the king's chief advisors. And advise he would, as Turin, ever hateful of the enemy, pushed for war. Too long had Morgoth's corruption spread. Too long had the orcs run rampant. And Turin wished for the elves to issue forth from their protected kingdom and challenge Morgoth in the open plains. And so the elves left the safety of the trees and began to make war, battling the horde to great success. This allowed them to expand their sphere of influence, build outposts, and destroy orc strongholds. But most notably, the elves would construct a bridge to connect their central home to the outside world. And this is a big deal, because it allows more fluid movement of troops, but also exposes the main elven hub to outsiders. It was a show of confidence, perhaps even arrogance, a signal of the elves' growing strength. And with the great bridge finished, the elves celebrated. Feasts were had, wine was drunk, and loads of debauchery occurred. Yet all went quiet on a single fateful night, when two black riders rode up to Nargothrond.
Who goes there? State your purpose.
I come bearing ill news. from the gods.
The gods? Do you think me a fool?
I'm serious.
Oh, I see. Well, if you truly are from the gods, then answer me this. How many fingers am I holding behind my back? Answer right, and I'll let you pass.
It's 3.
Aha! What the? Who dares disturb my party?
King Orodreth, I come bearing warning from the gods. Morgoth sends forth his greatest champion to do one thing.
Oh? And what is that?
Destroy you, my king. Your family, your friends, everything that you hold dear.
And what would you have me do?
That bridge you've built, that connection, destroy it, or he will use it to destroy you.
Destroy my bridge. No, I think I have a better idea.
The gods send a messenger to the king of Nargothrond with warning. Morgoth is amassing a great army with one single purpose in mind: to destroy them. And that bridge they've just built exposes them to this threat. So the messenger pleads with them to destroy that bridge, but he's disregarded. And the elves of Nargothrond seal their fate. For Morgoth, the great deceiver, released his true power. An army so large, so vast that the very hills shook with fear. But such a great force needed direction, a leader, a champion. And lo, deep in the depths of Angband, far below the chilly throne of Morgoth, sat this hero of darkness, this champion of dread, this villain of old. As Morgoth said,
"Hail, mighty Glaurung! Come forward and claim thy domain."
For it was Glaurung, the great wingless dragon, a worm of unmatched size. He would lead the armies of Morgoth and bring destruction to all who stood in his way. Yet courage is always there, if one is still enough to see it. And at the Battle of Tumbalad, the elves would ride out and meet this great enemy. But it's a disaster. Nay, a massacre. The armies of Morgoth eviscerate the elves, and none were spared. The king is slain, thousands killed, and even poor Gwyndor was gravely injured. He knew his part of this story was coming to an end. Yet before he returned home, he left Turin but one final piece of advice, saying,
Turin, look to Findulas, fairest of the elves. She alone can save you from your doom. Fail her, and you surely shall fall.
Who the fuck is Findulas?
A fair question. She's a woman, an elf woman who fell in love with Turin, and apparently her fate is directly tied with his, and it just so happens that she is in mortal danger. Because remember that bridge? that one used to connect Nargothrond to the outside world, well, it's now allowed the orcs to breach the main keep. Not good. This means Findulas is in big trouble. So Turin, pushed by Gwyndor's words, made haste to save her. He too had forbidden feelings for this elf, and so nothing, not even this great dragon, would stand in his way. And sure enough, as Turin approached the keep, the shadow of Glaurung loomed large. And when he saw Turin, he smiled and said,
"Hail, son of Hurin. Well met, but I fear you may be too late."
Silence, you witless worm! Keep that forked tongue between your teeth, or I shall take it. Yeah!
Very well. If I may not use my tongue, then perhaps my eyes will do.
Glaurung's magical gaze petrified Turin like a moth to a worm's web. And now, with Turin within his grasp, he could sow his evil deeds, saying,
"Son of Hurin, I name you betrayer. You sit here and defend these elves while you forsake your kin. Have you so easily forgotten about your dearest mother and noble sister? They lie in Dorlomin, slaves and beggars, while you sit here playing the hero like the child you are. If you have any honor left, you will forsake these elves and defend them. Now be gone!"
Glaurung freed Turin from his gaze, and from his evil words, Turin abandoned his quest to save Findulas, and instead sought after his mother and sister. Glaurung claimed that they were slaves, beggars, thralls, and that Turin could not stand. So with great haste he made off for Dorlomin, his home, his original home. But alas, this was not the home he left, for the Easterling's presence had only grown stronger, and a great chieftain had usurped his father's throne. Dark were these times, yet Turin would not be discouraged. He searched high and low for his mother and sister, but none whispered their name, not even the trees. So Turin sought out this great Easterling chieftain for answers. He burst his father's door down, grabbed the chieftain by his collar, who said,
"Doriath! They went to Doriath!"
To which Turin replied,
Thank you.
as he slew this man and learned the truth of his deception. For his mother and sister had fled to Doriath, not Dorlomin. They were safe with the very same elves that raised Turin. Now why is this important? Well, it means that the dragon lied. But why would Glaurung do this? Thought Turin. And then, as if hit by a bolt of lightning, Turin was struck by a sudden realization.
Look to Findulas, fail her, and you surely shall fall. My God!
He had been deceived, for two roads lay before him. Save Findulas or seek his family, and Glaurung had sent him down the wrong path. For now Turin knew what he must do.
I must make haste.
As he sped away at once, seeking to find and save this elf woman. Glaurung and the orcs had destroyed her home, and so Findulas was likely a prisoner. But this is good news, for the orc caravan would be slow, bogged down by the shackles around the elves, so perhaps Turin could catch them. and catch them he would. For after many days of searching, Turin found the band of orcs. But it was not what he expected, for the orcs were battling a group of men. So Turin helped slay them, and asked the men if they'd seen the elven prisoners, to which they replied,
"Yes, my lord, but I'm sorry to say they've been slaughtered. Their bodies burned just over that ridge."
Turin had come too late. Finduilas was dead, and it seemed that death followed Turin wherever he may go. First Saeros, then Beleg, the outlaws, Gwyndor, and now Finduilas. The doom of Morgoth penetrated far deeper than Turin could perceive, and none of the children of Hurin were spared, even his dearest daughter Nienor, sister of Turin. Her fate would be affected as well, and currently Nienor and her mother Morwen reside with the elves, protected from the malice of Morgoth. But humans, unlike elves, lack patience. Their short lives are driven by anxiety, and so Morwen and Nienor would leave the shelter of the elves to seek out and find Turin. But the roads outside of Doriath had darkened with time. Even the old elms seemed angry, and a chill wind cut to the bone as a fell silence descended upon them. Something was wrong. Very wrong. And then he came.
"Please, God, save me."
Glaurung sprung forth. He stomped on elf and crushed many a horse, dispersing the entire party. And in the confusion, Morwen's horse sped away, separating mother from daughter. But Nienor, poor Nienor, would not be so lucky. Her horse was terrible, and had failed to make the escape, meaning Glaurung, the great dragon, had her ensnared, the other child of Hurin. And at that realization, a grim smile crossed his face, for he had more evil seeds to sow, as he said,
"Ah, hello, daughter of Hurin. You just missed your brother. He fled from me like a craven, a dog with his tail between his legs."
You lie! The children of Hurin are many things, but craven is not one of them.
Do not call me a liar. Look deep into my eyes and know thy truth.
Well, I feel a little woozy. Did you put something in my drink?
Glaurung's magical gaze drove Nienor into a dreamless sleep. Eons passed, and Nienor fell out of time and space, even beyond our vision. And what became of Nienor, none can say, but it seemed that Glaurung's evil purpose had been served, and for now he would rest, bathe in the spoils of war, and wait for Morgoth to call upon him again. Meanwhile, Turin continued to make war against the enemy, this time leading a group of men from a region called Brethil. Their forests had become overrun by the orcs, and so Turin, hating orcs, helped lead the fight against them. Many an orc was slain, and with time, the forest became safer once again. And for this, the people of Brethil loved Turin, wishing for him to be their leader. Yet Turin was a changed man. Tragedy clouded his soul, and a dense aura surrounded him. Grim had Turin become. He was never quick to laugh, but now, not even a smile could be seen upon his weathered visage. He needed something, some hope, some opportunity. a chance to propel him forward and make him happy once again. And lo, fate would bless Turin with a renewed purpose.
Sir, come quick. Is it orcs? Have they returned?
No. It's worse.
A dragon?
Scarier.
My God. A Balrog?
Spookier.
No. Is it a woman?
Correct.
The men found a woman, a peculiar woman, naked and wild, more like a beast than a human. She couldn't speak and seemed untouched by the constraints of civilization. She looked at the men as if she'd never seen their kind before, and thus they attempted to communicate.
Hello there. What is your name? And that is why I'd like you to put on these pants. Do you understand me? Sir, she's clearly insane. Just leave her and be done with it. Nay, Gimbold. If we abandon this woman, then we are no better than the orcs. Plus, it's starting to become a goddamn sausage party in here.
Turin took in this mysterious woman, naming her Nienor, integrating her into Brethil society. And with time, her and Turin fell in love. They'd get married, and Nienor got pregnant. And for once it seemed, life was on Turin's side. Tragedy had followed him his whole life, yet it seemed the tides were changing. The dawn was coming. For the first time in ages, perhaps ever, Turin smiled and laughed.
Ha! Ah! Ah! Ha! Ah! Ah!
The guffaws echoed all across the land, even extending to the north, very far north. For in Angband, the citadel of darkness, Morgoth sat upon his icy throne and smiled. Long he'd watched little Turin, delighting in his tragedy. Yet this bliss, this happiness Turin felt, was all part of his plan. For one cannot know sadness without happiness, and Morgoth perceived now was the perfect moment to ignite his final plan. So once again he called upon his finest champion.
Hey! Hey! Wake the f*** up!
Just 5 more minutes.
Wake the fuck up!
Alright, I'm up.
Morgoth sent Glaurung forth to make war with Turin. Too long had Turin sat in peace. Too long had Turin evaded his doom, and now the great inferno came to consume all that he held dear. Orcs began to pour into the forests of Brethil, and once again the people needed Turin's leadership. So he grabbed his sword and put on the dragon helm of his ancestors. He'd hoped he'd never need them again, but the vile orcs threatened everything he held dear, his wife and his future child. And so with the men of Brethil at his rear, Turin rushed into battle against the hordes of Morgoth. Shield met sword, hammer met head, and many died. Yet once the din of battle silenced, Turin stood victorious. To which he said,
Huzzah! Huzzah! Huzzah!
Yet this was but the beginning. A scouting raid, and a great shadow loomed on the horizon, for Glaurung had yet to present himself. Speed was not his strength, and so slowly the great worm made his way towards Turin. Yet this did provide an opportunity, a chance, even if it be small, for Glaurung's slow speed would allow Turin to predict his movements, understand where he would be, and more importantly, when. And so Turin gathered intel from his scouts, gathered his greatest warriors, and began laying out the plan.
All right, men. Glaurung has been spotted but 20 miles from our homes. But do not fret, for this is good news.
How is this possibly good news?
Because Glaurung approaches his final doom. Kabad an Aras. Yes, a foul place, but the perfect spot for a trap. For when Glaurung slithers his fat belly across that chasm, I shall pop out from beneath and skewer him like the pig he is. Any questions?
But sir, what if the great worm doesn't take that path? What if he chooses an alternate route? Then what?
Well, then we're f***ed.
And so the plan was set. Wait for Glaurung in Kabad an Aras, a great chasm. Here Turin and his men could lie in wait and find the perfect moment to strike. So he took his best men and delved deep into the cavern. They crept through treacherous terrain and navigated the dark passages, until finally they were ready. And as if waiting for his cue, Glaurung awoke with a great roar. And by the sound he made, he was but a few miles away. The earth shook and the ground trembled, until finally the great dragon arrived, shaking the chasm to its very core. Turin waited and waited. Mere moments seemed an eternity. And then it was time.
Bullseye.
Turin skewered the great worm right into his belly. Glaurung writhed in pain and writhed until finally he fell still. To which Turin said,
You died like a pig.
Oh, I feel funny.
Glaurung's toxic blood splattered onto Turin, causing him to go limp as a bonefish. And to all who looked on, Turin seemed dead. Glaurung seemed dead. Yet still, none of the onlookers dared approach. None save one.
No. Turin, you can't be dead. You've slain the great worm. Now come back. Please, come back.
But alas, Glaurung was not dead. Or at least, not yet. For the tears of Nienor gave him strength. The great dragon stirred, and with all the malice of his spirit, he unleashed his final evil, saying,
Hello again, Nienor, daughter of Hurin, sister of Turin. I find great joy that you have found your brother at last, your lover, a curse upon your kin. And now, with my final breath, I release you from my curse. Begone!
And after Glaurung's final words, Nienor began to shake, as if taken by some mad evolution. Her eyes widened, her face sweat, for she knew the truth of who she was. Nienor, the sister of Turin and the daughter of Hurin. Glaurung had placed a spell of amnesia upon her, and now with his death she realized the truth of what Morgoth had in mind. incest with her very own brother, her dead brother. And so fair Nienor said,
This life is accursed. There must be something I can do.
and at that moment she sought the chasm, the depths, freedom. And so she walked over and did the impossible. And thus Nienor would never know the full truth. Turin, her brother and lover, was not dead. For in that moment he awoke and asked the people of Brethil where his fairest wife was. But none answered, save one brave soul.
She is dead, Lord. She threw herself from the chasm. But I fear it gets much worse. For her name is not Niniel, but rather Nienor, daughter of Hurin.
You lie!
But it was true. Yet Turin refused to believe, and so he slew the man and fled into the wilderness. Long he walked alone, but the words of the man flashed through his mind. Yet still Turin misbelieved these tales, assuming them to be the malice of lesser men. But then, old friends found him, the elves, the very same elves that harbored Turin as a child and protected his mother and sister. Yet these friends would cast the final doom as they informed Turin that his mother and sister were not safe in Doriath, but rather had gone missing. And one phrase, one simple sentence, would send Turin into madness.
The dragon assaulted us. None have seen your mother, but your sister. Dearest Nienor, the dragon placed a fell spell upon her. She lost her mind and became wild in spirit, naked and afraid, naked and afraid, naked and afraid, naked and afraid.
And from these words Turin realized the truth, and he laughed, a shrill, harsh laugh, a laugh of one who finally understands their fate. So Turin fled from the elves and found a silent place deep in the woods. And here Turin's black sword took its final soul, its master's soul. And thus came the end of Turin, son of Hurin, a life doomed to failure. And Morgoth smiled, for his malice had ripened, and Hurin, still chained in his lair, had to watch the whole thing. And after all this tragedy, Morgoth did his final evil. He released Hurin, and sent him free to forever bear the weight of his decision. For his denial of Morgoth was the impetus of all this slaughter. And that is the story of the Children of Hurin, darkest of Tolkien's tales.